Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Famvestor Podcast. I'm your host, Sunny Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunmarie Burns.
So we just got back from a really long trip down to Florida and back. We spent a week there, but we wanted to kind of use it as a case study for frugal family travel and everything that kind of went on. And I think, we did a good job with this trip, so I hope it inspires some people because everyone's kind of like, what does frugality actually mean? And I think there's some good golden nuggets in our trip and in our travels and some things that a lot of families, and not even just families, but anyone can really take away from it. So we want to dig into that and
share our experience.
Yeah, so let's get to it.
You're listening to the Famvestor Podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
Welcome back, everyone. So, this trip to Florida we had planned almost a year ago. It was part of a buy one, get 1 week free vacation package through the Armed Forces Vacations Club. I mentioned before, you get $300 a week vacation stays. This was a 3-bedroom in Florida, full kitchen, full bath. And like usual, we like to get our families involved. So my parents flew in, my Sunray's parents flew in. So we had a multi-generational family vacation in Florida, so that was really cool. We drove down actually because Sunray's, a couple weeks now from giving birth, so we were kind of borderline able to fly, but we decided to drive for a number of reasons, a lot of them being frugal reasons. We would have had to rent a car, we would have had to rent car seats and all the expenses that go with that.
Buy the plane tickets
for both kids. They're both over 2 now. So all those expenses add up. Not to say, driving adds up too. You have tolls, you have gas, and, we have our subcompact cars, which get like 40 miles per gallon. But actually, this time around, we had a very interesting thing happen right at the beginning of the trip. Well, it was planned, but we're expecting our 3rd baby, so we're starting to look for bigger vehicles. We tried to fit 3 car seats across in our little subcompact Honda Fit, but it wasn't quite working.
Yeah, not a good idea.
Yeah. So anyway, I really like Toyotas, so we were looking at Toyota Sienna minivans, and I've been researching them probably for the last 4 or 5 weeks off and on, and got serious the last 2 weeks or so. Anyway, been searching. I was looking specifically for a 2011 model or newer, and around 100,000 miles, single owner, and I wanted to pay about $10,000 for that vehicle. And so I was trying to buy it before this trip just to kind of get it all settled and have that under a belt. But for one reason or another, the seller had like an appointment to get an airbag recall done, and he really wanted to do it. And I was like, okay, great. Anyway, the seller's really great. He's a second owner, not the single owner, but he bought it at like 40,000 miles and seemed to have really taken good care of it. So I could see like a lot of pride of ownership. He had maintenance records. Anyway, suffice to say, a lot of pride of ownership. So I really felt really good about the seller, communicating back and forth via email. And good enough, in fact, that we decided to meet in Pennsylvania because he was, or actually right in the border of Pennsylvania. We met at a DMV, Motor Vehicle Commission, and actually bought the car right there and then on our trip down to Florida. So my dad actually, his flight was going to be later in the day. He drove with us in our Honda Fit. We packed all the kids, we packed all the stuff, and we met this guy, 2 hours south in South Jersey, and essentially bought the car right then and there, $7,400. I negotiated him down $100. It was a really great deal. 2011 Toyota Sienna, 119,000 miles for $7,500. He wanted $7,500 for it. So I was bombarding him with emails and calls, and I was first one on the scene, or first one to kind of get him to agree to show it to me, because that was a sweet deal, way under Kelley Blue Book. So anyway, that's kind of how you have to do it. You just have to watch the market, know your car, know what it's worth. I'd been seeing hundreds of Siennas by this point, so I knew that this was a good deal. So, I emailed him probably 3 or 4 times before he even responded, but he did respond to me and me alone, so I was able to be the one to get this great deal. Anyway, it was a great car.
Yeah, it's a good car, and it was interesting when he was handing over the title. We took the keys and the title, and we popped open the trunk and just started shoving our suitcases and all our belongings in there. He was probably like
What?
What?
What is with these
Do these people not have a home or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we told him we were taking a trip to Florida, and he goes, "Oh, that's great. Where are you guys going?" We're like, "Oh, Orlando area." He's like, "Oh, gonna do the Disney World thing?" And I said, "No, not this time." And he goes, "Oh, why not?" I said, I think the kids aren't old enough to appreciate it." And my 4-year-old sticks his head out of the trunk of the new van and looks at the driver and goes, "Yeah, and we don't have any money for Disney World."
So the backstory behind that is, well, we didn't think they were old enough to appreciate it. But anyway, I told Valen, our eldest, if he saves $200, whenever he saves $200, we'll take him to Disneyland. I don't know why. I think my father-in-law has been showing him like videos of Disney World and everything. So he's got in his head that he really wants to go to Disneyland and that it's a great place. So anyway, I didn't want to just give it to him. So I said, have a goal, save $200. And this is something like long term he can think about and saving towards, instead of, going to Walmart and buying all the cars that he wants, to think about, okay, maybe instead of buying those, I have this, need to save this money to go to Disneyland. Anyway, he's been pretty good about that. So we took him to Disney Village this time around, which is the free entry into Disneyland. Not really entering Disneyland, but the outskirts of Disneyland and
Disney Springs.
Getting a taste of that experience. So we did take him there.
Yeah. But we just decided overall it would be too much of a theme park experience for them a whole day long, being 2.5 and 4.5, a little too young. And me being pregnant, you with your ACL surgery, we didn't see ourselves going on the rides and really making the most of it. So instead we chose SeaWorld as our big experience while we were down in that area.
Yeah, which was kind of happenstance, actually. We weren't planning to do any of those big theme parks, actually. But we found a great deal through Craigslist,
which we'll share about further on in the episode.
Yeah. So anyway, we get the car, I title it right there at the DMV, and I inspect it right there, so everything's good to go, and we start driving. I put them in my Easy Pass, and we start driving, and we drove this car in the last 8 days that we owned it, 2,700 miles. That's almost across the country, up and down, from New Jersey down to Florida and back, and all the traveling we did in Florida, too. So that was a pretty good test drive, and it's a good car, no weird noises or anything like that.
Pretty gutsy thing to do, I think, to take a untested new car and do a trip like that. But we had enough confidence in the vehicle and its condition that we felt
he sent me the Carfax and everything like that too. So
give it a try.
Yeah.
But why did we do that? Well, first reason why we bought the minivan was it was a family need that we've been thinking about for months now with our growing family. It just was a purchase that needed to be made, and it happened to happen at the same time as this trip. So that's the reason for the purchase of the van. We didn't buy the van to go to Florida. We bought the van because we needed one, and we happened to be going to Florida.
Yeah, we were honestly thinking that maybe my dad would drive the minivan back and we would continue down with our Honda Fit. But thinking, pregnancy, having a little more room, my knee having a little more room, and then just being down there and being able to transport more people because, my parents were going to be there. Sunmi's parents were going to be there. There's going to be 9 of us down there.
So it would be a much more practical vehicle to have in Florida.
Right.
So we loaded the car up and we started our long-distance car ride.
18-hour drive down there.
And we thought we'd share a little bit about what it's like to travel with 2 young kids on such a lengthy car ride, because I know a lot of parents have great anxiety around the idea of long car rides. We've been doing long car rides with our kids from nearly day one, so it's nothing new to them and it's nothing new to us at this point.
Yeah, and they were really good both ways. We didn't have any meltdowns this time either way. There was a couple complaints, a couple times. It wasn't that incessant. It was just a few times where they were just I want to get out, but really it didn't happen much at all. Right. And I think we just planned really well for it. I went and bought some Audible audiobooks for kids. We have podcasts that they like to listen to. Yeah, it was
brought plenty of toys as well as learning activities they could do in the car while
Right.
traveling. And I think as long as you plan enough activities to keep your kids busy and occupied and satisfied for the duration of your trip.
And snacks too to change things up.
Right. As long as you have a lot of that on hand, it can actually be a really fun experience.
Yeah.
I think it also helps to add here that the earlier you start your children in traveling in the car, the better travelers they'll become. If you shy away from it, they won't be used to it, and then they won't really know how to handle it when it comes up. So we've been doing this since they were 2 or 3 months old, and just continuously some 2-hour rides, some 4-hour rides, some 8-hour rides.
Yeah.
So it was not any surprise to them.
Yeah. And some other tips is I like to have the car seats really lean back so they can really kind of doze pretty well without kind of their faces falling forward or anything like that. So that's a good tip there. The podcast we listen to, there's this stories podcast that our son really loves. And we also loaded up a bunch of read aloud MP3 books on our phones so that they can listen to their cars audiobooks and things like that. And you can find a lot of them actually on, we talked a little bit about this on our episode 6 of family travel tips, but you can just go on YouTube and just search like read aloud storybooks, and our kids specifically have cars, so I type like cars read aloud storybooks, and then there's like YouTube to MP3 websites where you just type in the YouTube link and you can save as an MP3 file. So I had a bunch of those files saved on our phones, which we play to the kids on occasion when we're driving. We stay away from any like tablets or screens. We haven't introduced those to our kids yet and don't really plan to. We feel like the audio engagement is enough.
And it really sparks the imagination.
Right.
Rather than passively absorbing information, you're creating visual images in your head based off of a auditory story.
Right. So a tablet could be easier for those other parents who are into that, but I don't know, we've kind of like this audio method, and the kids, are very engaged. Mm-hmm. And so we had that stories podcast, but our son also, we played for him for the first time this trip, Wow in the World, and he really liked that show. So there's just kids podcast shows where they're just teaching about like science in that specific one, and the stories is just like folklore.
Right. And it really does engage them and get their mind off the fact that they're on a monotonous car ride. They can really go into faraway places and worlds in their imaginations listening to the stories.
Yeah. And
sometimes also it helps to have a new toy or two. Sometimes a simple trip to the dollar store is all it takes to pick up a new Matchbox car or a little craft item that they can have on the car ride when they're really tired and bored of everything else you've brought. You could pull out this new thing, and then all of a sudden it sets them back again, resets them, and they're happy for another hour.
Right. On this particular trip down, we actually stopped maybe 10 hours in at a friend's house in South Carolina. We spent the night there.
Right.
But maybe halfway down to that trip to South Carolina, we stopped at a play place in, I think it was a McDonald's play place, and just let the kids, blow off some steam. This was probably in between a nap. And then we hit the road again. So, strategically placing those outdoor like playtime activities. I think we also stopped at a rest center that had a nice outdoor walking area. I think that was after South Carolina, in Georgia. Yeah. But we also stopped at a Chick-fil-A at one point, which also had a play place. But it wasn't more than like once every 3 hours or so.
Right. But it does help to think about that. If you're going to stop to eat anyway, might as well pick a place that has a play place for children so that they can really stretch their legs and have some fun for a little bit without you having to make an additional stop to what you had already had planned.
Right.
Also for little ones, especially the topic comes up of bathroom breaks and them being very unpredictable with small children. And our youngest son is about halfway potty trained at this point. He's well on his way, but he's not there 100% yet. So one solution we came up with is to bring a little portable kids potty along with us in the back of the van. And whenever he needed to go, we just would pull over on the side of the highway, and then we would put him in a trunk and let him use his little potty because he was used to that at home. And then we would put him back in his car seat, and it would be as quick and simple as that. And it helped a lot rather than having to frantically look for a public restroom, which may be dirty or not clean, and he was a lot happier on it. So that was our solution to our children's little bathroom breaks that were needed on the trip.
Right. So once we got to Florida, it was very cheap housing. We booked the whole week. It was 3-bedroom, full kitchen, and there was 7 adults, 9 altogether with the 2 kids. But you break out that, like $400 cost by 7 adults, and that's, less than $10 a night per adult, which is really cheap. And so we love that traveling as a large group, traveling with the whole family. And what's great also is we have the full kitchen, and we really took advantage of that. We cooked so many meals there. So we do a thing where we all contribute funds towards a grocery bill. We all go grocery shopping, and then we cook meals. We had breakfast almost every morning there. I bought a large carton of 60 eggs from Walmart to have breakfast. We had sausage, bacon, pretty much every morning, bagels, you name it, we had it. What else did we cook during that week? We had some DiGiorno pies that we cooked for lunch.
DiGiorno pies. We made sandwiches. We made meatloaf and chili for dinner.
Right. Spaghetti with meatballs.
Right.
What else did we make?
I think we had 3 home dinners.
Okay. And then some dinners we went out,
We went out. Right. And if you are thinking of doing extended family travel, I highly recommend finding a place that has a full kitchen.
Right. You save so much money that way.
You really do. You think maybe even going to a McDonald's or Wendy's might be a cheap option for food, but honestly, what you're spending is a lot more than you'd spend if you just did a grocery run and cooked it yourself at home.
Right.
Plus the health benefits of preparing food yourself. You are more in control of what's in it. You're eating a little bit better than you would if you eat off the road. So we recommend that. We've found that getting accommodations with kitchens has been highly helpful to us in our travels this time and in previous trips we've made.
Right. And, again, getting those multiple bedrooms. So instead of paying, the regular hotel room where you can fit maybe 4 people in it, we're now getting, a place that's maybe cheaper that you can fit 7 adults and breaking out the cost of 7 adults,
Right.
That.
So each of our respective families got their own bedroom. So our family, we had 1 bedroom. It was the 2 of us and the children. And then my parents had their own bedroom, and then your parents had their own bedroom. And so in essence, if you were to all go out and get hotel rooms, that would be 3 hotel rooms you're paying for
right.
separately versus getting 1 house or condo or vacation stay in a place with multiple bedrooms, and you're all together and you're saving in that regard. So now we're going to talk about what we did while we were there, because that can really add up quickly as well. If you fall into a lot of tourist traps and spend big money on things that aren't necessary, you find yourself racking up a big bill. So we tried to be really strategic with our decisions on where to go. We looked into a lot of low-cost and no-cost venue options for our travels. So state parks are a wonderful way to travel with the family. You get out into nature. You can see the true natural surroundings of where you're traveling to, not a fabricated tourist trap. We found a wonderful state park in Florida called the De Leon Springs, which was natural spring fed pool that you could swim in.
72-degree water year round.
Right, so it doesn't really matter if it's cold or not. The water will always be that temperature. And in addition to it, they had kayaking through a river where you saw manatees and turtles and lots of wildlife. And another wonderful thing they had there was a pancake
breakfast restaurant.
A restaurant, which is kind of unusual for a state park.
But it's like $5 per person.
For all-you-can-eat pancakes.
Which was cool. It was a cool experience for sure. We had gone to Blue Springs State Park 2 years previously, and that was really cool because it's like a natural lazy river and also had manatees there, and it's also spring-fed, but I think they're about 30 minutes from each other, but really cool place.
So both of those were really wonderful experiences that we found in Florida. you pay per vehicle to get in, like
$6 a carload to get in.
Any state park charges.
And we packed 8 people into the minivan and got through for $6 for all 8 of us. One of us stayed home that day.
Right. So that was a wonderful day we spent out in nature all together. We had a great time. And it was very low cost to us.
Yeah. Another thing to think about, too, is also, staying where you're staying. And maybe where you're staying, I picked strategically this place because it had a water park, actually. It was called Balmoral Resorts. It was a pretty cool place. And they had a water park. It was freezing cold the first day, but it also had a nice pool and a nice hot outdoor hot tub. And they warmed up the pool later on, so that was really enjoyable. But it was fun to just stay there. We didn't necessarily need to go out and spend money. Our son's just learning to swim, so just being out in the water as much as possible was great. They also had an arcade there. So pretty cool stuff, just to be able to stay at the venue and not feel like we needed to escape.
Right. You didn't have to go out and do things every day. You could just stay put at the condo and enjoy the amenities.
Yeah. And so one other thing we did one night was just look for local things that are going on, local festivities, and we found out, it's around Christmas time. The city that we were staying at actually had a Christmas festival, so we were like, oh, let's just join the locals and go to the free Christmas festival. And they gave us free cookies and free hot chocolate. We got to take pictures with Santa Claus. They had jump castles that were all free, and it was just a great time.
Entertainment from the local
and a great playground that the kids could just play at.
Right. And that was a really fun way to spend an evening too, connecting with the local culture and just enjoying a fun, wholesome family activity together that didn't cost us anything.
Right. I think one of the first things we did, like the second day we were there, was to go to a orange grove. Mm-hmm. And they have like an orange juice factory there too, and just take a tour there. And that one did cost like $5 a person, something like that.
I think it was $8 an adult, but you're taken out on a golf cart. They take you all around the orange grove. They let you pick oranges off the trees and teach you about the history of orange growing, and really get an insider look onto a family-run farm. We chose that activity. There are lots of orchards you can go through, and some are more commercialized and some are more tourist-centered, and some can be pretty expensive. But if you look for like a family-run business that does this, they have a passion for sharing their story and their industry. And so a lot of times the price is quite fair, and you get a really wholesome experience. So we had a lot of fun doing that. We learned a lot about Florida oranges and how they differ from California oranges or any others.
Right.
And it was a great experience.
And they had so many free samples, which was great. Just drinking the juice, the homemade orange juice there, that was really good. And they had like 8 different varieties of oranges and grapefruits, and just sampling all that was really cool.
Right. So highly recommend visiting an orange grove. It's a great activity. You learn a lot, and it's unique to the state that we were in. It's not something you do up here in the Northeast, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so another day we were kind of thinking what we wanted to do, and there was Legoland around, and at one point I was searching on eBay for tickets for, local theme parks to see if we could get into something cheap. And there was a Legoland, like 4 passes of Legoland on eBay for like a third of the price. And I was thinking about doing it, but it was going to expire actually like the first day we got there. And I'm like, do we really want to rush in there? And go to Legoland the day we arrive and have all that hecticness. But anyway, what something we ended up finding on Craigslist was a guy who was selling tickets for SeaWorld. Right. And actually, he also sold tickets for Legoland too. I think he works for one of the parks. But anyway, he sold us tickets to SeaWorld, and SeaWorld tickets normally are like $105 a person. This guy was selling tickets for $35 a person.
Right, a steep discount. I guess
right, a third of the price.
Of the cost you'd pay at the gate. So even if you want to do some of these larger tourist attractions that are, they have a steep price tag, there are ways of getting around that sometime. I mean, there is some element of risk you take when you buy through a third party. You know, there's always the possibility they could be
counterfeit
tickets, or just, you know, already used tickets, something like that.
Right.
So you do run a certain level of risk by doing such a thing.
And we did run into a little bit of a, I don't know, it didn't work exactly as planned. You know, we bought 8 tickets altogether. Our littlest one got in for free. So half our tickets worked, and then half didn't work. They needed to be validated or something, so I had to call the guy. And because we had just done this through a cell phone, you know, we texted him saying, hey, we want this tickets. I Venmo'd him money, and then he emailed the tickets first, and then I Venmo'd him money. So, you know, definitely a risk there.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then he was very good about it. I called him, and then he sent us new tickets right away. That worked, and we got in fine. But it did take about like 20 minutes to get the new tickets and get that all sorted through.
Right. And, you know, you never really know who you're dealing with. Fortunately, we had someone who was honest and worked with us very well.
Yeah.
But those possibilities are out there for those who want to try. Also, oftentimes, there are timeshares that you can attend that will offer you
free tickets after listening in on like a 90-minute presentation or so.
Right. So that's another way you could potentially get tickets to certain,
especially in the Florida
parks.
area. It
Right.
seems like that's pretty prevalent.
Right. So that's another way you could go about it. Groupon is another great app to search for finding discounts on some of the attractions you might be interested in, or even just finding things that you might be interested in. For instance, we went on Groupon. We were looking for things to do nearby in the Orlando area, and we had found Wild Florida, which is a fantastic,
really good
zoo nature park.
They also do
offer
airboat
rides. And it's in a beautiful area of Florida, and I highly recommend it. They provide certain shows about alligators. They feed the alligators and teach you about them and endangered species. A really great place to visit with the family, with kids.
What I like most there is their aviary. They just have like this caged area that you walk into, and there's all these like parakeets and parrots, and you can buy these little $2 sticks with popsicle sticks with little seeds embedded into them, and they just like all the birds just as soon as you enter like hop on your shoulder, and you could feed them. It's a really cool wild experience.
It's a really nice nature habitat where you can get up and close with the animals in a natural way. And they also offer animal encounters too, if you wanted to like feed a sloth or feed an alligator. You know, they have a bunch of different options like that too. A really wonderful place to visit, and not too expensive, I think.
Yeah, normal entry for an adult is $10 a person.
Right. And there's Groupons running for them as well, and some other places in Florida that you can get a much better rate on Groupon versus in person at the gate. So we recommend searching that app if you're looking for places and things to do in the area.
Yeah. So that's about, you know, pretty much what we spent the week kind of doing, other than, you know, swimming at the pool. And we did go to Disney Village one night too, which is, again,
Disney Springs,
that free portion of Disney, just to kind of look around.
It has a lot of restaurants, shopping, stores. If you go in the evening, there's a lot of live entertainment that's free. You can listen to great music on the sidewalk, see performances, and do some shopping. Our kids had a lot of fun visiting the Lego store there. That was a highlight for them.
Yeah. And for meals too, to be frugal, I've mentioned this before, is, you know, going for buffets, you know, so, you know, maybe having a early breakfast and then having a later lunch buffet. You know, at the lunch buffet, price is usually a lot cheaper than a dinner buffet, but it can, you know, if you have a late lunch buffet starting at maybe 3:00, that'll definitely carry you through to dinner if you eat enough. So it's definitely a frugal way to eat while you're traveling.
Right. We did that a few times, and it worked well for us. We'd go late in the afternoon and have a great meal, and then we really didn't need anything later in the evening. So you get 2 meals for the price of 1.
Right.
Another cool thing to look into wherever you're traveling is factory tours. There are oftentimes factories that create interesting foods or things in the area, and they offer free or low-cost tours, and they're so much fun. And this trip around in Florida, we found a local citrus marmalade and candy factory called Davidson's of Dundee. It's a really cute little home run, family run business, and they have this whole factory you go into. They show you how candy is made and how they make their marmalades and jar them and everything. And then of course they have a storefront where you can buy their goods that they make there. And it was a free tour.
And sample a lot of it too.
Could sample a lot of the candies, the jellies, which is really fun. We've done this several times in our travels. Last year when we went to Tennessee, we toured the Bush's Baked Beans factory. Got to sample a bunch of baked beans and see how that's made. That's pretty cool.
Ben and Jerry's factory before.
Ben and Jerry's factory. Lots of cool factory tours out there. They're educational, informative, fun, and usually free or low cost.
And give you samples.
I highly recommend that. Actually, in Europe, we even went to a chocolate factory, right. And at the end of the tour they gave you a full
so much
chocolate buffet.
Yeah.
It was well worth the, I think, $7 to get in for that tour. So that's just a suggestion I have. In Florida they also have the Nature Zone orange juice factory. We didn't go to that one this time around, but that's another one out there. So highly recommend factory tours in your travels. So that basically sums up our most recent trip to Florida. We hope that we could give you some inspiration, take away some fears about traveling with the family long distance, help you come up with some creative ways to save some money when you're traveling, and just get excited about the idea of traveling with your family. It doesn't have to cost you a whole lot, and you could still have a wonderful, exciting, and fulfilling time together. So with that, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'd love to hear about your travel adventures that maybe you have been on and some of your fun travel hacks that help you get through the adventures with your kids.
Good luck, guys. Godspeed.